Okay. Good morning and welcome to the Bricktown Urban Design Committee meeting, August 9th, 2017. Do we have a quorum? We do. Roll call, please.
Ava Scaramucci.
Here.
Richard McCowan. Here. Jonathan Dotson.
Present.
Kasha Egan. Omar Curry. Sandino Thompson. And Brent Wall.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. You should have received in your packet a copy of the minutes from the July 12th, 2017 meeting. Is there any comments, corrections? Otherwise, I need a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Cases withdrawn, none. Continuance requests, none. Consent docket, none. So we will begin on our first case for consideration. It is BCA 17-00016 at 108 East California Avenue. Michael?
Yes, this application is for the renovation and some addition on the roof deck to an existing building at 108 East California, which is located on the south side of the Bricktown Canal between Oklahoma Avenue and Mickey Mantle. The project involves replacing existing windows and doors and adding new windows and doors where there are brick infilled from previous openings. They're proposing to build elevator towers and stairways to the new roof deck with new railings at the top level and installing HVAC equipment at the top. There's also proposal for ADA ramp access at the canal level, and a new waterfall feature also at the canal level. We've identified a few issues in the staff report for the Commission to take under consideration. The first being that the existing east face of the wall, of the building is a big, large blank wall that is 140 feet long. But we've also described for you the conditions that we feel mitigate that, in that there's a vacant lot to the east that will ultimately probably be developed on, and also that the existing building is built on the property line, and that limits their ability to create openings that we would normally want to see in a blank wall because of building and fire codes. Secondly, there's a guideline that suggests that where it's applicable, a trash room built into the building that faces the alley should be considered. And this is kind of an ideal case for that because it does have alley access. However, due to space needs and other use issues associated with the proposed use of the facility, they need that space for their use. And they are exploring other options for disposal of their trash. Now, there is a existing dumpster facility across the alley on the south side, directly behind their building. That would be an off-site solution, and that, if they choose to use that, they would negotiate with that property owner to make improvements to that enclosure because it currently does not meet code. We've added a condition to the recommendation for approval that if they do need to create a new trash enclosure, that they would bring that back to us in the form of a certificate of approval for review, for design review, probably at staff level consideration. The third item we've raised in the staff report for your consideration is the proposed metal canopy at the main level on the canal side. In the update to the code in 2016, we made a concerted effort to try and encourage the inclusion of contemporary architectural elements, the renovation of older buildings. And they have proposed what can clearly be considered a contemporary element with this entry canopy. However, we feel that it might be a little too large or a little bit out of scale, and we wanted to have the Commission's input on whether or not that was the case, and also input from the committee on whether or not the design itself, the contemporary look of the entry canopy, is appropriate for this renovation. In conclusion, we have recommended approval of the project to the committee, and we have again added that condition with regard to the ultimate solution for their trash collection operations. And that concludes our presentation. We're prepared to respond to any questions the committee may have.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
One question I have is the clear walkway between the waterfall feature and I guess sort of the canal. It's showing 5 feet.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of concerns about that. It seems like 6 feet is a normal urban standard for clear zone sidewalk. I don't know if we have a different standard along the canal, or if there is a standard along the canal, but then the subsequent concern is sort of it seems like the purpose of the waterfall is to stand in front of it and have a picture made. So now we're obstructing the clear zone because we got people, basically it's set up to have people stop in front of it. So where I'm headed with this, it seems at a minimum like there's room to push the waterfall back further and create more clear zone. I don't know. That's the one aspect to this project that just sticks out. I mean, it seems unrelated. I need some more understanding about the waterfall.
We did have some discussions with the applicant on that aspect of the project. There is, it really comes down to whether or not the canal walkway is considered a sidewalk or not, as to whether or not there's a minimum standard, and we haven't really come to any conclusion in that regard. We know that 5 feet is a minimum for our sidewalks. Clearly, for the canal level, a wider area is probably more desirable and ideal because you do have a lot more pedestrian traffic along the canal. And as you just cited, the fact that having a waterfall there is going to attract a bit of a crowd from time to time, and that's going to even pinch the passable walkway in that area a little further. So I don't know if the applicant's open to squeezing that back a little bit and providing, maybe 6 to 8 feet of clearance through that area, or how much room there would be available once they start pushing that back. But the applicant is present to respond to that kind of question.
Would the applicant be willing to talk about the water feature a bit?
I'd jump in too, and when I looked at the application, those were the exact 2 things that I had major concerns with, was the width of the sidewalk and the congregation right there. I was also a little bit worried about water spilling out into the sidewalk and being constantly wet right there as well.
Well, we're not, John Neubauer, I'm with Falls Event Center in Salt Lake City. couple of issues I'd like to address first, if I might. Grateful for staff's recommendation. Just a couple of items that were referenced. One was we're not adding brick to the front of the building. We're simply removing the paint, doing it in sensitive ways so that we can get back to the brick and take the paint off of there. It wasn't clear in my remarks in the design that we're not replacing the windows in the back of the building. We're just going to repair them so that they're usable, but obviously what's in the front clearly needs to be replaced. And then regarding the canopy, when we originally proposed the canopy, we were trying to be as conscious as possible to fitting in and blending in with the area. And this is the original that we submitted back in October, which is really trying to make it blend into the area. And it was staff that said, we'd rather have you go over and copy the Holiday Inn Express, which we tried to do, and we tried to then use items that we've already done there. So we actually like what's there. We think it fits, and we're hoping that we don't have to redesign this as we're being asked to do here. Regarding the waterfall, if you move it back too far, you really diminish its ability, to move it back a foot. I'm probably okay with that. To move it back 3 feet, we almost take away the ability of the fountain. We've got it back as far as it can go now, and so if you now take 3 feet, you really don't have much left other than just a straight waterfall feature that's right there. And the idea is to, when people come here, what's attractive to them is the ability to have that outdoor patio on the roof to create, and the pergola to create some stunning photo opportunities. And then in every location that we're in, the most stunning feature for people to have photographs is clearly the waterfall. So I just kind of share that feedback with you. We're happy to work with the city as well as we can under the circumstances.
So I have more training in photography than I probably should have, and I'm trying to picture
and
setting
probably
up.
Much more than I have.
Well, I'm going to put my subjects, the wedding party or whoever, standing in front of this waterfall, and I know it's going to work because there's a waterfall over here at the Myriad Gardens, and just drive by there on Saturday and you'll see people everywhere from a wedding party to prom, and people are standing there in front of the waterfall and somebody's standing back taking a picture. So if I'm the photographer in this situation, I'm either standing on top of the ground cover in the landscaping, which is going to kill the ground cover, or I'm falling in the canal, because I've got to stand back to get, women really wear nice shoes when they're at, the bridesmaids' dresses, etc. So to be able to get a head-to-toe shot, you need to either rent the water taxi, and you're pushing it out toward the canal is just illogical to me in order to create a photo backdrop. And I don't know. It seems like it needs to have some on-site consideration. I'm hung up on this thing, and we need to get you started, and your project's really cool, and I want it to be down there. If there's a way we could isolate this piece of it until more work could be done on exactly where you really want it, because I just feel like I know you need a waterfall. It's in your name. It's a photo backdrop, bit of spectacular destination, but I really think that it's not going to work the way you want it to work. You're not going to be able to use it as a photo backdrop because you can't back up and take a picture. Does that make sense?
I understand. I'm not a photographer. I assume they're going to figure out how to do whatever they need to accomplish. That's, at the moment, that's their issue, not ours. But on the other hand, I don't see, again, we're open to trying to work with the city and move it back somewhat, but to take 3 feet, that's a big chunk, 3 feet. I mean, 3 feet, out of an area that's, the waterfall itself is probably not more than 4 feet itself. So to take out, but you set the standards, and it's up to us on what we can do to accept them or not accept them. That's the best I can say, Commissioner.
My question would be, what was your idea for placing the waterfalls there? How do you see the use of that?
Well,
Is it
actually,
just for
if you're familiar with that
passerbyers?
area there, that area is really an eyesore already because of the metal that's there. And so part of the idea for placing the waterfall there is to try to camouflage, because we can't do
Cosmetic.
much to change that metal that's already there. So that was the purpose, Commissioner, for doing it.
It was more of
And
a,
obviously, we wouldn't want to put it on the roof, because we've already got structural issues that we're trying to be careful
Yes.
of. We've already got to
Yes.
invest a lot in the structure of the roof.
understood.
I wonder if there's a way that you can maybe have your cake and eat it too, where instead of having the actual tank at the bottom that is full of water, where if you could, it's the vertical water coming down that's the real attractor. So there may be a way where you could do something more of a water wall that doesn't have quite as large of a tank that you could stand in front of and wouldn't take up quite so much space. And then could really be something that's really cool and attractive, but doesn't come with all the issues. So just a suggestion there.
Is the tank what is causing the problem? The tank itself?
Well, it contributes to it. Part of our original proposal was to recirculate out of the canal, and the city said that wasn't acceptable to them, so now we had to self-contain,
Understood.
create a self-containing mechanism within it.
Could I switch to one other question while everybody's still thinking about this one? I did not serve on this committee last October, so I'm a little curious about the first canopy, the first presentation. What was
We
the
never
objection?
actually presented it to the commission, so in our conversations with staff and prior to coming to the
Okay.
commission, that was staff's recommendation. And so what's there is what was actually presented to the commission back in January when I was here for their review, and it wasn't raised as an issue then.
Okay.
The initial canopy design looked a lot like this one on the Kingman building,
Yes.
and it looked too much like it, and we thought that was probably not a good idea to mimic it just right down the street from the same type of an entry. So we did encourage the applicant to look at some other more contemporary designs.
Yes.
We did not say go copy it, but we did point out the Holiday Inn Express as an example of a modern contemporary canopy design that did go through a lot of review and scrutiny when it went through the
I
committee.
do remember that, yes.
And we thought, since that passed muster with the community before, that it might be a good example for them to go look at and try to come up with something that was comparable to that design.
Do you have a photograph of the,
No, no, we don't.
oh, wait.
But
Can you give the next slide?
this canopy design, with the exception of the fact that the Holiday Inn's canopy has a glass roof on it, this canopy design is almost exactly like the Holiday Inn Express.
Can you go back to the context photos? I think I saw, it's certainly at, right, one more there. Is the red facade with the yellow sign, is that not the
Yes.
building?
This is the building that's being
Yes.
renovated.
Okay. And essentially, there's a new opening that's going to be created between the two windows over on the right-hand side, correct? Isn't that where the new...
It's not really new.
Yeah, the canopy is right in this location here.
Between those two windows, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was an entryway there at one time, and then as you go and look more closely, it's been bricked up.
Where the existing door is now is not the historic location of the door, and it's not the new location of the door.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think what's at issue is really this idea of a distinction between what is new and what is old, and creating a fake old thing creates confusion. And the Oklahoma Historic Preservation Office is very clear on these things having to do with wanting to be able to understand that, these light fixtures were original to, the WPA era, whereas those spotlights are clearly not, and they're not.
We obviously accepted that counsel when we came back to the commission with that contemporary design.
Right. But it seems like we're in a spot where you're not particularly happy with the canopy.
No, we're
the new
okay.
modern canopy.
We're okay with the canopy, but we're being asked to redesign it again. I am grateful to be able to work with the city, but just in the process of these last 4 to 6 weeks alone, we've redone our drawings 3 or 4 times to accommodate changes, and so to now go back and redesign or resize or redo the canopy again when this very canopy has been before you back in January is frustrating, and it's adding more expense, as you well know, Commissioner. But if that's what you want, that's what we'll consider. But I'm just saying we've really jumped through a lot of hoops to get to this point already.
Yeah.
Well, I have to just comment that I did not interpret this staff report that they were insisting that anything be changed. I just interpreted that they mentioned that maybe it was a little oversized, is what I took away from that. I don't think anything about the design is, certainly doesn't bother me, and yes, it looks a lot like the Holiday Inn, but I served on this committee when the Holiday Inn came before us, and I was one of those that approved it. So I think maybe Richard thought that you were not completely satisfied with the canopy. Is that correct?
No, it wasn't the design. In fact, if you go look at our website, you'll see that our entryways, while it's not necessarily that material, our entryways are similar to that design already.
I'm sorry, I'd understood that you would have preferred to have gone back to the one you just showed us on your iPad.
No, I was just saying that we were trying to blend in when we started, so
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cause confusion, Commissioner.
If you wanted to make it smaller, in theory, it would save you some money.
Point well taken.
Okay. Are we ready to talk about the fountain again?
Yes. Anybody else have comments on the water?
Does anybody have a tape measure? I didn't bring one. I normally have my backpack. I'm having technical trouble today. We could step this off.
Here's 3 feet. This is a
I
yard.
can be unorthodox. I'll be quick. But if just scale photography, most utilized phone in the world today, would could
And
I?
that's not a problem. I'm just unclear as to if this is constructed for a photo moment or op, or if it's just constructed to be an amenity along the walkway.
My position is it's going to be a photo moment, and we're in the culture of nonstop selfies, but I think you're creating
And
it.
it won't
as-
just be for our guests that are there.
Everybody's gonna
Everybody who
stop.
comes by will want a picture in front of that fountain.
Yeah, and
We acknowledge that.
I think there's.
But then what I think
you'd
Richard
be
is-
better served if it'll go, and
Yeah.
I'd like to give it a quick test.
Well,
We do a lot of kind of.
I think we're not here to define what that distance should be. I think all the committee has to say is, we think it's too close, please study it.
Is there a way, would it be,
In shrinking it. I mean, it scales, the whole depth of the water feature now scales at like 7 feet. So I would think there's a slim version that's attractive and fun. But you know what I'm saying? I don't think we need to get that much in the weeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a way, if the committee has that concern, to separate that off from the rest of the approval and not make an approval on that aspect of the project at this time and defer it to some later date, and either defer it to staff, or if you want to see it come back, you can make that recommendation as well.
Well, I think that would be appropriate, because I agree that it's a beautiful opportunity for a picture. I'm not a photographer, but I honor those that are, and I'm understanding that it's difficult to get much of a shot because of there's not enough room to back up unless you're standing on a water taxi. So I like Michael's suggestion that we put that to the side, and that would need to be a motion separate. Would it not?
That was my first thought this morning when I was thinking about this case, was if there's a way we can get you going, get you approved, and then separate the positioning of the fountain, waterfall, and I'm good either way to leave it to staff or to have it come back, but I want you to get going. You have a great project, and I can't wait to see you thriving in Bricktown. So I would move
in the process of coming back, we need to have some direction. What is it that you really want? What is it that you really don't want? So that we're not constantly saying, what do you think of this? No, that's not quite it. What do you think of this? We need some definition here. What does the commission and the city want? And if you don't want the waterfall, then pass that and we'll do it. But we just need some direction, some real guidance that we can say, okay, here's what it was, here's the standards, and we'll play ball in the arena that we've been told to play ball in.
This is my understanding, listening to all of this, and let's make sure we all agree. I think no one has anything but kind things to say about the waterfall. The setting of water is always, it's a people pleaser, and they always crowd around. What I'm hearing from this committee is that perhaps there is not enough depth left at the end of the waterfall for someone to take an appropriate picture. Am I saying that correctly? Mm-hmm. So based upon that, it still does not make it wrong. I don't believe staff or anybody says that. It just seems that if there is a greater opportunity there to do something for a photo op, it might be something that we could consider and that you could consider. So I think if there's a motion, and if city wants to work with that and work that out, is that comfortable with this committee? Or do you want it to come back before you if that should come up?
I don't need it to come back before us, but
Here's my question.
I heard something slightly.
Even if we move it back 3 feet, our photographer in residence can probably make a reasonable case that moving it back 3 feet, you're still going to have a photographer who sets up his or her tripod in city property. So what I want to know is it going to be okay for us to move it back, for example, 3 feet, and still be permissible for a photographer to be in that city right away to set up their picture?
That's not really a problem. And I think that the thing that I want you to understand what I'm saying is you're setting this thing up in a way that your clients are going to be disappointed with. You know, you're going to have a lady in a wedding dress that's getting the back of her dress splashed with recycled water. That's unpleasant. I mean, I live in girl world, man. You know, so she's going to move closer to the photographer. The photographer is going to keep moving back, trying to get the head-to-toe shot. And when you use short, wide lenses, distortion happens. Now she looks pregnant. I mean, these are like great photographers use long lenses, stand way back and zoom in, and you don't get the like big nose, ears. I mean, those are all facts. And so you're putting this in a spot where a wedding photographer is going, this isn't working. I'm not getting a beautiful shot, and knows it. They're not going to buy the photographs. This isn't about abstract. I mean, you're clearly, we need a minimum of 6 feet, but you're spending a lot of money to create something that isn't going to accomplish your goals. That's my real point.
And I'd like to go back just to the regulations, basically about just promoting walkability within the district. I feel like, 5 feet it's already kind of tight down there anyway, and that 5 feet it's not comfortable. And then if you have anybody stop to look at the waterfall or to take a picture, then you have a backup. So I feel like we're in a situation where you need to create the maximum amount of sidewalk there for pictures, for people to walk. So I would like to see it pushed back as much as you possibly could, and then that tank shortened as much as it possibly could be. And I think you've got an opportunity where if you lose the rocks and did a concrete tank that was raised up 18 inches or so, then you have a seat wall that somebody could sit on. So there's some good urban design opportunities there just by kind of altering the design of that fountain a little bit. I would personally like to see this come back to the committee because I think there's a lot of design consideration that needs to be given to this feature in order to make it really integrate into Bricktown and to be a really nice feature. So that'd be my preference.
Any other comments?
No, I was just going to make a motion that we actually then separate the two so that we can...
No, you don't have, the motion doesn't have to separate it. You can just make a motion to approve with the exception of item 2B.
Okay. Well, I would motion that we approve with the exception of item 2B.
There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it. I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Now, if you want the waterfall to come back to the committee, you could make a separate motion to give staff that direction.
I'd like to make a motion for the design of item 2B to come back to the committee.
I second that.
So you're going to continue item 2B to October. What's the October meeting date?
Surely not. Are we not having?
Wait, they won't have enough time to.
Oh,
They won't have enough time to turn it around.
well,
13. Yes.
could I ask a question on
sorry,
that?
that was.
Is it that they would not have time simply because they should have already submitted for the next? And if that's the
For
case,
continued items, our deadline would be a week from yesterday. So if they can turn something around in terms of a new design for the waterfall by next Tuesday, we could probably get it on the September agenda. But that's oftentimes very difficult for applicants to meet, that tight of a deadline.
and I understand that, it seems like October is a long time away. I was trying to think of some way to expedite that some. It would be difficult to turn something around that quickly, would it not? Okay, all right.
So I'd like to make a motion to continue item 2B until the October 11th meeting.
A motion is on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 I would like to clarify on this. We approved the canopy as is, and we approved, what did we approve about the waste receptacle?
The condition that was recommended in the report was that they would come back to us with a separate C application because they're not solving it on their own property, so it would be on somebody else's property, and therefore it would have to be a separate application to give us their solution as to how they're collecting the trash and whether or not their collection area is up to code in terms of the current standards for enclosures in Bricktown.
Okay. And to upgrade that, it would be my thought that the current owner of that trash receptacle would share in the expenditure of upgrade?
That would be between
Is that just between the two of them?
Between the two property owners.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Tom Rychecki, 2913 Persimmon Creek, Edmond, Oklahoma. I represent the building adjacent to the falls, the Kingman building.
Yes.
And just have a couple questions. On the trash, we can work with the falls on leasing out space. That was one of my questions. You know, it's a very dense area down there. We lease out space to other businesses around there. We have a huge issue with illegal dumping on that site, even though we have our dumpsters locked up. Other businesses that do not have dumpsters come and dump it down there. So we'll take a look at what the code requires and try to really get that area secure, but we can work with them. Since it's a very dense location and we have the construction with the streetcar parking or the streetcar going on, construction has been ongoing for the past couple months. Just want to understand kind of the construction and the impact it will have to the other businesses, specifically, you know, to where construction material will be staged for the project, since there's really no area around the building for material to be staged. The location of the construction dumpster and where that will be located, because all we have right next to it is the alleyway and there is no parking. The owner does own the parking lot that is adjacent to the site to the south, but we lease that out to our tenants right now, so I'd just like to understand the impact it will have to receiving deliveries coming down that alley. It is important to our tenants, especially with Yucatan and Bourbon Street that are in the Kingman building, being able to get deliveries, and delivery trucks are constantly coming down that alley. So just making sure that we limit the construction parking to other areas besides that alley and not staging any material in that alley.
I can just tell you my personal experience. I'm at the corner of Mickey Mantle and Sheridan at the known as Painted Door building. And I went through a major construction of a year long in 2016. And we took it upon ourselves to find parking for the people working on our building, because we have the same problem. We have no parking there, and the alley is a very busy alley. So I think that's also what you're asking, is what arrangements are being made for such. Is that
correct?
Am I hearing you correctly?
Correct.
It's a fair question.
Very good question, and what I propose is that we work on this when we have our plans together. You know, as we've already been doing, we take counsel from other Bricktown area owners already, and we'll do that before we come back to the city. We'll work with council here and other area owners. We have to work with Chris Johnson, of course, with the golf course. So those are things that we will do before it comes back to the city, so that it reflects input collectively, not just our intent. We don't look to the city as an arbiter. If we're not being a good neighbor, then we haven't done our job up front.
Thank you. I think that is the correct answer. And I think we're all a little sensitive right now because every time you show up in Bricktown right now, all there is construction in the streets, so.
Oh, I know, but we're truly ecstatic for not only the falls to take over that building and get it updated. It will only help our building and our tenants. So we want to be good neighbors. Just want to make sure that we limit the impact on our tenants who chose the space because of the location and also the parking that we have.
Understood.
And then just making sure I understand the construction work schedule. Are we limited to certain times during the day so it's not going all through the night? Or?
I don't know, we can connect you to the department who can answer that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then lastly, on the waterfall, since the waterfall is going down to the canal, who's responsible for the maintenance of that feature? Will that be the falls or will that be the Bricktown Authority?
It's not going into the canal.
Well, since it's
self-contained. It's not flowing.
Is it fully on their easement?
Yes.
Okay.
And another thing is that the Bricktown community, or the bid, if you would, we do not maintain anything on private property, so that, if they're going to put that in, it would be theirs to take care of, I believe.
Okay. The only reason why I ask is because I know there's an elevator for the different levels on the canal right now that is not operable. So we've had some maintenance challenges down there, just making sure that everything is taken care of, and it represents a first-class facility and destination location in Oklahoma City. So I just want to make sure that I have the correct understanding. If there is an issue, we go talk with our neighbor.
I believe is the elevator, is that on private property?
No.
Okay.
So.
And I want to say one thing, because I have been in Bricktown a long time, and I heard you say this too. It is so nice to have something done to this building finally. It has been an eyesore for years and years, so
yes,
we're all very excited about it.
We are. We can't wait for them to start.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from? Okay, thank you. Our next case for consideration
Yes,
item,
go ahead.
I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
is BCA 17-00018 at 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Michael?
Yes, this is an application that was submitted for committee's consideration for a new mural on the east facade of the Candy Factory building at 1 East Sheridan. You've recently seen some approvals on this building for signage. We have the old black and white signage painted at the top that was recently approved, and some signage at the corner of the building as well that's recently been installed. This is a proposal for a mural, as I said. The location of the mural is on the east side of the building. It faces a walkway that is presently located between the Candy Factory building and the Banjo Museum to the east. This is a view looking down that walkway. Here we see the east side of the building, and I've kind of superimposed the yellow boundary to show, generally speaking, where the proposed mural would go. Here's a view of what the mural is proposed to look like. I do want to point out that this mural did go to the Arts Commission at their meeting on July 17th, and they did recommend approval of this mural. We have identified one issue for the committee to consider, and that is the fact that this is an unpainted brick building, and there are guidelines in the code right now for Bricktown that suggest that we should avoid painting unpainted brick whenever possible. And so we've offered in our consideration session of the staff report the possibility of painting the mural on some other kind of easel or a board or some other kind of thing that could be mounted on the wall as opposed to being painted directly on the brick. And again, this is a guideline, so the committee does have discretion to allow it to be painted directly on the brick, but if you have the concerns that obviously identified by the guideline, then you would have latitude to also require an alternative method of putting the mural on the wall. So that,
May I address that? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
when we're done. That completes our presentation, and we're prepared to respond to any questions the committee may have.
I also believe, if memory serves me correct, Michael, that you mentioned that even if it was just painted directly onto the brick, it is basically a small coverage compared to the whole.
Yeah, we did point that out in the staff report. It is, not painting the whole building, and not even painting the whole east side of the building. It's just a small portion of the east facade, and that may be a mitigating factor for the committee to consider.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, committee, for considering our proposal. To address that issue head-on, because I know that's a major concern for everybody, we've done a little research on this. We've located a couple of possibilities for removal that are environmentally sound and cost-effective. There's a mobile media blasting company that operates within Oklahoma City, $3 a square foot. They use crushed pecan shell and water mixture, so it's not going to hurt any of the surrounding vegetation, and it's about $3 a square foot. So it's a relatively inexpensive process to remove it. Plus, this obviously would not be any lead-based paint, so there's no environmental concerns with that. And the layers would be reasonably thin compared to years and years of built-upon paint. So the removal would be fairly straightforward and easy. I've been quoted the company, it would be less than $500, which would be a pretty reasonable amount, I would imagine.
Is just a question about that. My experience with removing paint from old brick is that, and this is old brick, correct? Is that it's oftentimes also removes part of the brick.
I did ask about that. This is that's usually with sandblasting. Since this is a different composite, it is less abrasive and doesn't actually affect the brick. The company sent me to some pictures that they had of a site they just did in the Paseo. The brick was just fine afterwards.
Are you suggesting this as, like, you see,
well,
is the mural just up for a period of time?
Well, because it's only guaranteed to be up for 10 years. And then after that, we would, possibly have it replaced. We're obviously planning to be here for the long haul. The Chickasaw Nation owns our business, and we are invested in being in Bricktown for as long as you see fit to have us. And so really the purpose of this mural is to kind of identify the Native presence in contemporary society that we represent and bring people to our location. So I'm simply just addressing the concern that it's not permanent. This is something that we would like to see and we would like to maintain for the long term, make sure that it beautifies the area and doesn't detract from it. But again, if at some point it becomes an issue, it's easily removed and with no harm to the actual structure itself.
Well, I would like to say that, first of all, that walkway through there, what a major improvement that is.
Absolutely.
It's just beautiful. I was down that way the other day. And I would also like to say I love this piece of artwork.
Oh,
I just think it's stunning. And I appreciate the fact that you have given consideration to if and when at some time that's needed to be removed, that there is a safe way to do that. Because that was my concern. I tried to remove some paint for some brick on our buildings, and that did not work. So unless I wanted to lose all the brick too. So thank you.
Absolutely. And just to also point out, the vegetation you see here is in the foreground. There's a ramp and walkway that is ADA compliant, so there's plenty of space for any picture opportunities. They won't be trumping on any vegetation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was just going to say, due to the fact that it is proportionally not taking up half of the building, and the fact that the painting is awesome. I am all for this, so
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion that we vote to approve.
I'd like to second it, and I also want to go on record as saying this is really cool. It's awesome you're doing it.
Thank you very much.
Before we go any further, is there any comments from anyone in the audience? Valerie? Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor to approve this item. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you,
Item
committee.
approved. Any other business? There shows to be none. Is that still correct? Communications, administrative approval report. Michael?
Yes, we have 3 items that have been approved administratively since the last time we met. One being another in a string of revisions to the Zio's building at 2/12 East California. This one involving a revision to the design of the steel exterior egress stairs. Second one is a proposal to provide an outdoor patio dining area that's fenced in front of what was formerly known as Room 222, which is the bottom of the parking garage on the south side of East Sheridan, just east of Mickey Mantle. And the third being a sign for the building out there in East California where the IHOP restaurant is located. So that's, I think, for a new restaurant that might be on the second floor. I'm not sure. But anyway, those are the 3 administrative approvals from the last month.
Thank you. Any commentary? I think it's wonderful that there is such a thing as administrative approval. I have said that before, but it is, it's just a great thing for everyone. I really believe that. Thank you. Let's see, comments from planning department staff. Any comments? From committee members? Okay, the next meeting date, September the 14th. And have there been applications submitted?
One. Item come before you.
Okay, so that will be set, that September 14th meeting. Anything else? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.